varying intensities, heavy at times for sure. We're going to see wind, a major component of the storm, as we go through today into the night, gusting as much as 50 miles per hour through today into the night.
On December 26 in 2010, and if you remember, we had a blizzard that day, 27 inches of snow. And as the blizzard was starting and kicking up, we pushed off the dock.
When you're out there, it's cold and wet.
Your hands get wet.
Lines are freezing.
It's very cold.
Freezing cold.
The cold can just suck the life out of you in a big rush.
A lot of my friends think I'm absolutely insane, but I love it.
That's frostbiting.
We sail every weekend all winter long. People don't go out; they're just simply not tough enough. I've come down a couple of times in the wintertime, and there's 3 feet of snow on the ground, and we're going to go sailing if it's only for a couple of races, just to prove we can do it.
So? Yeah. No, well, we left water in it. Sound, mate? Sound?
How cold is the water right now? Oh, come over here, I'll show you. There's the chicks.
The weather rarely stops us from frostbiting.
It could be below zero and we'll still be out here.
Are goggles a fairly standard thing for a day like
Pretty effective. You know, you'd wear them skiing, so why would you wear them sailing?
Yeah, why not?
Snow doesn't bother us. We sail in tons of snow. If it's very snowy, blizzardy conditions, we'll go out and sail.
These sailors want to be out there on a Sunday, regardless of the conditions, to get that sailing in, and they're willing to endure some pretty rough conditions to be able to do that.
It's really blowing, 15 to 20.
Gusts to 20.
Sustained 20 plus knots.
And we're out there for 3 hours straight.
Puffs are dropping down from nowhere.
But we will still be out there.
We go out there when there's ice floating around on the surface. We don't stop for the season at all. The only times that we don't sail is if the harbor freezes over.
The harbor gets pretty cold and it freezes over quite often. So there's a thing called a brick test. So we just take a brick, chuck it down on the ice. If it breaks the ice, we can go sailing.
We're gonna go out today.
A day like today, you can see it's fabulous being out here when it's 30 degrees and there's 6 inches of snow on the ground. Our boats are just steps from the water. We go in, we sail 5 minutes out to the race course.
We're checking in all the boats that are racing today, so we know how many boats are out here and can account for all of them in every race.
There's a lot of diehards that are here pretty much every week.
We have a wide range of sailors here. We have older sailors, we have young sailors. There are some new players learning how, but I'll tell you what, you get terrific sailing.
We get some of the best sailors in the area, loads of talent.
Good guys that have been around for a long time, a lot of masters. Guys that come from the America's Cup, the Olympics, guys like Peter Shope and Moose McClintock.
We have some of the most top sailors in the country. Andy David, who is a top collegiate sailor, and Bill Brangiforti, who has competed in many world championships.
Ed Adams, who's an Olympic coach, probably one of the greatest sailors in the country. And yeah, they come here every Sunday to play.
We encourage everyone to sail.
30 seconds.
Windward leeward, once around.
Our main course is what we call windward leeward. So we start, you work upwind to a mark, you round the mark, you go with the wind down to a leeward mark, and then you back up to the finish.
10 seconds to start. Looks good. Once you come back, we got a pin in and we're ready to start.
Let's do it, man. There they go. It's a lot of fun, but it's always very intense. And we expect people to sail hard, For the amount of time you're actually down here, you're getting a ton of sailing in. You can't overlook that, especially in the winter when it's cold.
It can get very cold frostbiting. If it's cold and windy, the wind keeps the water turning around, and therefore the water doesn't freeze even when it's 15 or 20 degrees out for several days. If it's breezy, it doesn't freeze. So those are the coldest days, when it's windy and cold.
It's coming sideways, it's hitting us, it hurts. Razor blades on your face.
There are people frostbite in lasers and sunfish and penguins and interclub dinghies and 9-foot Dyers and 10-foot Dyers in all sorts of little quirky boats. And the racing, all that racing is actually very similar because they're short courses.
This is our starting line 1. We're sailing upwind to B, down through a gate, C and D, and then back to a finish.
No matter how many races we have in a day, we always need a race committee. That's someone who will stand out there freezing cold and keep score, call us over early, and do all the logistics that are needed. It's freezing. It's one of the coldest things you can do.
How's that line look? Hey, Curtis, is the line all right?
You better be. You're not moving it around today.
It can be a hut, it can be a big boat, a small boat, it can be on the side of the road, it can be on a beach. It really can be anywhere.
So for the 5th, 6th, and 7th race, maybe we'll do a couple once-arounds.
Sounds good.
All right.
These are very short courses, and we really are doing more racing than longer racing.
One of the great things about frostbiting, and different from summer sailing, is that literally the number of races we sail.
So we always try to shoot for 7 races in a day.
8 races in?
We've done as many as 10 races.
12 races in on a Sunday.
This winter we sailed about 120 races.
Wow. All clear! All clear! All clear!
You'd have to sail 5 or 10 years in the summer to get that many starts.
Each race takes about 15 minutes to do, usually a quick cycle from one race to the next.
Screw you up. Come on, let's go. Come on.
The lines are short, the fleets are big, and it's hard to get off the line.
Landing speed. Yeah, baby. All clear.
Doesn't matter. Big wave here.
But very close quarter sailing.
Can't go in there. Don't go in there.
Rotate! 066 is over. Everybody's over.
There's certainly a lot of bumping out there, and it's a bit NASCAR-ish maybe compared to most racing.
We've had lots of collisions. I've ended up on Rose Island before with a boat sinking in the middle of winter.
Everyone comes all the marks together, so you really have to be on your game. And the thing that I like the most about that is that it really gives you an intense education in situational positioning and tactics of a race course. And so you learn a lot about racing and about where you want to put your boat and where you don't want to put your boat.
We sail lasers here, just lasers.
They're a 14-foot Olympic-class sailboat, single-handed, one sail. The laser is reliable, fast, and it's the most popular racing boat in the world. People frostbite lasers all over New England. There's Bristol Yacht Club in Bristol, Rhode Island. Here at Seawanhaka Yacht Club is Cottage Park in Winthrop, Massachusetts.
Fleet 413 in Newport, Rhode Island. During the winter season, it's about 25, 30 boats.
Probably the largest laser frostbite fleet anywhere in the country is in Westport, Connecticut at Cedar Point Yacht Club.
On a normal day, we will have as many as 50 boats, which is, in terms of frostbiting, is a huge fleet.
Laser's a popular frostbite boat because there are a lot of them. They've been around since 1974. There have been almost 200,000 of them built, but they're not really an ideal frostbite boat because they're very wet.
Oh, oh, oh! Go! Oh!
When you capsize, and people do, even the best frostbiters capsize, you're going to be going into water that's maybe 30 degrees. You're only going to have a few minutes of consciousness unless you have protective equipment. What you see me wearing right now is a dry suit. It keeps the water out. I'm wearing layers of polypropylene clothing underneath to keep me warm, and I'll stay dry in this even if I fall in the water. Also, a laser is what we call self-rescuing. The sailor can simply grab the centerboard, flip the boat right back over, and climb in. Boat comes back up ready to sail. The more experienced frostbiter can capsize, even be thrown from their boat, swim back to it, flip it back over or right it, and get back in and get right back into the race.
That's the way to do it.
You'll still be cold. You can count on it. The water's cold.
Really cold.
Very cold.
An ideal frostbite boat is one that allows you to sit higher and not get soaked.
A really popular boat is this one behind me, which is a Dyer dhow. And it's still very popular all around the Sound with fleets in Greenwich.
Indian Harbor Yacht Club.
Mamaroneck Frostbiting Association.
Norwalk Yacht Club.
Milford Yacht Club Frostbiting. The use of the Dyer dhow as a frostbite boat, they're like bathtubs. It was designed as a 9-man lifeboat for PT boats during World War II. And somebody was crazy enough to put a mast and a centerboard in one at one point. It's insane.
And one of the fleets that really comes to mind in the Dyers is Pequot Yacht Club in Southport, Connecticut.
One of the things that makes sailing at Pequot so tricky is that because it's a very narrow river and there isn't much current, it's very easy to freeze over from wall to wall. They put some hoses under the water with holes in them, and that bubbles the water. And what you do then is go out in a motorboat and they try to break up the ice into large chunks, and then they start pushing these massive slabs of ice out the harbor. And what often happens is, as the tide comes in again, those slabs come back in. So you can be racing, and next thing you know, there's a huge ice flow coming across your course, and you got to go around that just like the marks. It just becomes part of the race course, and that's why it's fun.
There it goes.
You know, when you go frostbiting, one of your main goals is not to capsize, because when you capsize, you tend to fall in the water. And you've got probably about 20 seconds, no matter what you're wearing, before you can't feel your fingers and toes.
It's cold. It's bloody cold. When you go over, your diaphragm tends to cramp and you have a very hard time breathing. So one of the things I learned to do was, after going over, have what I call the dance of breath by standing on the remains of the boat. It's maybe 4 feet underwater and try to keep your diaphragm above the water so I could breathe.
It's winter sailing, but the frostbiting name is right on. Feet, no problem. People figured out you can wear wetsuit booties, you get dry socks. But the one thing that nobody's been able to figure out is how to keep your hands warm. You can spend a lot of money on fancy neoprene gloves, or you can just go stop into the grocery store on your way down and get another pair of the yellow dishwashing gloves. And even those don't work. It's from squeezing the main sheet. All of a sudden you cut the circulation off in your hands, and it's just you're squeezing, and you get to the weather mark and your fingertips are just burning.
My hands ache with the cold. They get numb and then they sting. And that's the most uncomfortable part of frostbiting.
In between every race, everybody has their own sort of method. It's either, a little bit of this, or this is the most popular. You got any way to get movement to your hands, and that's the thing. Or, whatever you got to do. It's just, because once you lose your hands, you start dropping the tiller, dropping the main sheet, and then you're a mess, and then you're swimming, and then you're done.
God, pull it out of here. When we frostbite, we always have 2 crash boats out there, a couple of little Boston whalers. They're very stable.
Generally, you want to use pretty much indestructible boats that can withstand being out all winter. You want something that's stable.
They're there to assist anybody who's having trouble riding their boat, who's broken their equipment and can't sail. Who's stuck in the water, who's been injured.
Oh, not a good day not to wear pants.
One of the great things about this is that the folks on race committee, for the most part, are members of the fleet. So we all take turns and alternate being in the chase boats and being on the committee boat.
How cold can it get when you're on the crash boat?
It's actually colder on the crash boats because you're not moving. When you're sailing, you saw how athletic that can be. You're moving around, it's like skiing. You actually build up a sweat. It's a very different vantage point being out here in the crash boats, seeing how people handle the race course. You learn a lot by watching, there's no question about it. You watch the boat handling skills of the guys at the top of the fleet. You watch the way they react to wind shifts. It really is, they're spectacular sailors.
It's just extreme. The weather is such that the last thing you think you want to be doing is sailing, and yet it's just the only thing you want to be doing right then.
It's so much fun sailing in the snow. It's like sailing in one of those snow globes. It's really cool. It's just so unique.
When you start getting snow coming down, you can hear it falling on the sail, and you can literally see the wind on the sail as the snow hits it.
Frostbiters love to go sailing, and they don't want to be told it's too windy or it's too cold. Most frostbiters are hardcore. They're out there because they love to race, so the elements don't stop you.
So, no dry suit?
No dry suit. You get wet anyway. It's cold and wet no matter what.
I don't wear a dry suit. The last day I flipped the first race of the day, and I spent the whole rest of the day sailing soaking wet. I didn't care. Doesn't bother me.
It's cold and it's snowy, but you don't do it for a couple weeks and you miss it. You miss going out and sailing and competing. I guess that's long and short of it. I love sailing so much that no matter what the conditions are, I'll go out and go sailing.
Naturally, there's a lot of sailors that want to frostbite during the wintertime, and there's a number of different clubs and different boats. There's interclubs and Sea Dogs and Wickbird.
Bristol has Little Penguins, which are very tubby. There's Newport Yacht Club, and they sail turnabouts.
Here at Essex, we have the Ideal 18s and Etchel's 22s.
The Tech Dinghy, which came out of MIT.
Boston Yacht Club, you get about 10, 12 sonars out here. Very civilized, you stay dry.
At Riverside Yacht Club, we sail in a Dyer 10. We're not a typical Dyer. We also have 60 boats on the dock.
What you're looking out on the water now is what we call our radial or our cut-down sail. It's a smaller version of our big sail, and we use it on days when it's just too gusty.
We're at American Yacht Club near Rye, New York. The boat we race here at American is a Cook 11. It's actually 11-foot long dinghy, single-handed cat rig. Designed specifically for frostbiting. This is the only fleet where they're sailed.
These are actually really great little boats. They're simple. The American Yacht Club wanted a boat that was more sporty than a Dyer Dow, and also that was self-bailing, because if you go over in a Dyer Dow, you're done. You're Dyer done for the rest of the day.
Here in Rhode Island, they race some of a more common boat called the Sunfish in Barrington.
A lot of good talent in there, and that's one of the legendary frostbite fleets.
I think one of the things that makes the Sunfish so popular is that anybody can sail it, because you can depower the rig if it's too much for you, and you can really muscle it up in heavy air. So as a frostbite boat, a skilled sailor can survive in almost any conditions. I've been out in like 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it's really no problem if you're skilled. A situation where if a squall hits and it just hits you like a punch, that's a little different. But if it's a sustained heavy air, it's almost unlimited at what you can sail in.
There's lots of little pockets and lots of yacht clubs. You find a lot of different varieties, and even there's pockets of frostbiting that we don't even know about. But the truly hardcore guys, you're going to find those up in New Hampshire. Those are the Cape Cod Frost guys, and they're definitely nuts.
Tell me a little bit about this boat. You can fit it in the trunk of your car.
Yeah, it's a 6 feet 4 inches long. It's this design called the Cape Cod Frosty.
Frosty is just pretty much the smallest little racing boat you can squeeze yourself into.
Originally they were built pretty simply just out of a few sheets of plywood. Now, I mean, they're super light. It has to be at least 40 pounds. The spars, the rigging, the sails, all these boats are homemade. I mean, the boats that are racing this fleet are literally built by the people for the most part who are racing them. The boat is light enough to just carry underneath your arm, basically. So now we're just going to put them over the guardrail here and throw them in the water, and everyone will be literally out at the races in 10 minutes.
Now, why do you have those pads down there?
Knees, because we're on our knees all the time. You kind of sit on your hip and you sort of wrap your legs, almost like you're...
Like you're praying.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Praying for your life.
Well, you gotta keep the blood flowing.
All clear!
Everything that you do on a boat like Frosty is magnified, being so sensitive to sail adjustment and weight placement and stuff like that. You move your head and the trim of the boat totally changes. You learn a lot from sailing to Frosty that you can apply to other boats.
It's not just the cold or the weather that makes frostbiting unique. In the summer, people have a lot of different types of boats. In the winter, they're all sailing the same boats. So everybody's sailing against everybody in the same boats.
They're all the same. I could jump into somebody else's boat and they could jump into mine and it wouldn't make a bit of difference. It's the tiller, it's the sheet, and the rest is up to you to make it go.
Give us a brief history of how frostbiting first started.
Frostbiting actually began in December of 1931.
The story goes that a bunch of guys over at Manhasset Bay got into an argument about who was faster and who could sail their dinghy better.
January 1st, 1932, I guess the following Sunday, is the day in which they were to try the two dinghies. Apparently, word traveled pretty quickly because there were at least a half dozen or more people who were interested in trying their dinghies. And of course, they were all sizes and shapes.
This was great for those who sailed, but it was also great for those in the newspaper world who wrote about sailing, and it began to snowball.
It was almost an explosive thing that took place.
Within a month or so, you had people who became dissatisfied with the dinghies such as they were, and they wanted to win. And what they did to do that was to approach the top-rate designers and demand winning dinghies. These builders were starting to pump out these superb frostbite dinghies. They were gems, they were jewels. This boat is a really fine condition example of a D-class open boat. It's a MAHER design. It's 10 foot 6 long.
The blue and white dinghy is an A dinghy, which is one of the earliest dinghies that they raced here at Essex Yacht Club.
The people who sailed these Dyers and all the other dinghies did so because it meant a great deal to them. It's how they defined who they were. But they all complained about the cold.
When they started, there were no dry suits, very few wetsuits. Mostly what they were wearing was woolen underwear underneath foul weather gear. And oilskins back then were the foul weather gear. So this was pretty bulky, pretty clammy, and if you went in, very dangerous. So you had to be out fast.
And when you got soaked in, you were in the water, you were pulled out, maybe with a net even, or a tackle, and you came back and sat right here or stood right here in front of the fire, and the steam would rise off your wet clothes until you finally warmed up again.
Sailors to prepare for a day on the water in those days didn't have all the high-tech gear we have today, but it was cold out there. This was not for the faint of heart, and only the really dedicated sailors would get out on the water and take advantage of these fine winter days. That has not changed.
And after World War II, you began to get boats of a more exotic nature, in particular the IC dinghy.
The IC is a perfect frostbite dinghy.
These are the interclub dinghies, 11 foot 5 inches long, one sail, sailed with a skipper and a crew up front. Sparkman and Stevens designed the interclub dinghy specifically for frostbite racing. So in the 1950s, Manhasset Bay Yacht Club jumped on that opportunity, and fleets to Boston and as far south as Annapolis all began sailing organized racing in interclub dinghies, and we've been racing them ever since.
When we race in the winter, the interclub frostbite season, if you will, mostly it's a fleet-oriented type of activity. Past couple of years, Steve Benjamin came up with the idea of bringing the Wharf Rat series. The way it works is there's different regattas. Boston will host a regatta. They usually have one early in November, and they do another one in the winter. We host our own regatta over New Year's, of course, because that's when it all started. RICHMAN can sail their Wharf Rat regatta, which is called the Stanley Bell.
You guys gonna win today? You gonna beat everybody out there?
We're gonna try, right?
We've got beautiful weather and we're thrilled.
Conditions are awesome.
We're excited.
And Annapolis hosts a regatta usually at the end of January.
Through the years during our interclub midwinters, it gets cold.
And your score is accumulated, and you're given an award for your cumulative score at the end of the season.
The level of the skill level of the fleet is extremely high. All John Patton, Danny Plesh, John and Molly Baxter.
Pedro Lorson has been sailing since he was a child.
Jim Bowers, 6-time champion.
Paul and Gail and Adam. They're always sailing these boats. They got a good feel for the boats and they know what to do, how to make them fast, and that's all it comes down to.
The competition is superb.
And then, you know, we'll have our final events, which is Nationals.
The Interclub Nationals is the top prize in interclub dinghy competition. And it's held once a year. And it rotates around amongst the fleets. Larchmont, Annapolis, New Bedford, Winthrop. Each venue gets to host the Nationals about once every 5 or 6 years. One of the toughest regattas around.
The reason you come out here and race is for the competition, and there's a good group of guys at the front of the fleet that are going to be battling every inch of every leg. So you just got to stay consistent and not get too high or too low.
How many races do you hope to get in a regatta like this?
When we have good conditions like we're going to have this weekend, there should be nothing to stop us from getting a dozen races off.
We can't wait to see you guys out there in action.
Can't wait to be there. Good training here. This will be the best professional or small boat sailors in the country all in one place.
John McRae, Winchester, Mass.
Keith DeBuata from Atitacock River, New Jersey.
Marguerite Kohler, Amityville, Long Island.
Chris Muersler, Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Chip Terry from Boston, Mass.
Steve Braverman from Winthrop, Massachusetts. Ian Mutnick, Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Mark Ivey from San Francisco, California.
Rachel Doherty from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Chris Brady, Annapolis, Maryland.
Brian Russell from Arnold, Maryland.
Philip Lang, Rochester, New York.
Peter Beardsley, Larchmont Yacht Club.
Simon Strauss, New York City.
Jay Rame, New York City.
These are some of the best sailors in the country. Hopefully through the course of the 6 months during the Frostbite season, you see a little bit of everything. You see the light, you see the medium and the heavy, and hopefully you've had a chance to race against some good people in all those conditions, and you put that all together, you're as ready as you're going to be, and then you just hope you have a good weekend.
Ready. On your mark. Get set. Go.
That is a beautiful start.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great, exciting, very competitive, perfect breeze for the boats.
It's always about consistency. This is a no throwout regatta, and that's what really puts a premium on making sure you're consistently at the top. We always have one person doing a scorecard with what they think is going to happen when the boats are coming in tightly, they're clumping up, and that way we make sure we don't miss a boat just in case like 5 come across at the same time. And on top of that, we keep a camera going so we can always go back and make sure we get everything right.
50. 717. 536. 753.
Starter race 3.
One got a hell of a start that time. Race 4, more consistent breeze. 17, much more aggressive in steering his boat, little waves building.
717, very consistently.
Boat 60 is really starting to show up. Race 5.
536.
Very nice margin. Never gave up.
717. 74.
The weather grasped the idea of frostbiting. It's a fun atmosphere, fun people, great competition.
Okay, here we go with race 9.
50 is doing very well in this race. 717 is doing very, very well. Look, no one's able to catch him. Leading 717. You see the fellows that have a lot of hours in the boat, the finesse they have in these tacks and these conditions. So it's going to be much tighter here with 31, 17, and 753.
818 and 708 are in that cluster.
These are some snappy, good conditions. I think we just keep rolling.
It's good to stay in practice. We have some really good people who come out and sail.
804, having a great race.
804 would be definitely helping his cause with his bullet today.
Yeah, we'll definitely have one more race after this one.
Luckily, we're experiencing as pristine conditions as you could possibly ask for, and so this is why it's so easy to keep it going and why we want to keep it going. Yeah.
That was a beautiful start. Boats were evenly distributed along the line, and everybody was near the line, as you saw, and that shows a certain level of confidence in terms of them understanding where the line is. I had to make for a good shot.
There was a pack of boats, like 4 or 5 of them that were all in a tight little group, and I'll just have to see the scores to see who made out in that pack. But 50 is having a really good day today, but 717 has this one locked down, so good day. Wonderful condition for a day of sailing to close out the Interclub Nationals.
This close maneuvering, the skill of these sailors, this condensed form of racing in these slow boats is one of the most enjoyable ways to watch the sport.
There are some people that sail only in the summer, and that's great, and there's people that want to continue throughout the entire year because they love the sport. So it's just a cool opportunity to keep sharp and have fun doing it.
It's a ton of fun to be out there on the water.
You feel like you're beating Mother Nature a little bit.
It's basic sailing at its absolute essence.
It's very pure sailing, and it's a lot of fun.
You have to admit, it's fun.
I love sailing.
Love it.
I love it. I just love it.
You feel good at that. You went out and did something that most people would not do.
Beautiful.
One of the things for me that I enjoy the most about frostbiting is just getting off the beach and sailing out to the race course. It's suddenly you're away from the everyday noise, and suddenly it goes quiet, and you're just by yourself on the boat, and there's boats around you. But it's a beautiful time to go sailing.
When you're stuck in your house on a snowy winter day, and you look around, what do you want to do? Let's go sailing. The water is sparkling, the sun is out, it feels great on your face, and you're just thinking, man, what is everybody else doing right now? You're just happy to be sailing. You really are.
Pretty much nobody in their right mind comes out here this time of year. So we always say one of the beautiful things about winter sailing is we own the bay.
Best part of the day. I don't know how many capsizes we had yesterday, maybe. Really? Yeah.
It's too much of an advantage on the race course. Oh yeah, it's too much of an advantage. People would start aiming their sleeves out behind the boat and stuff like that. But it's tradition. When it's cold out like that.
But that's a tradition not just for Milford, but pretty much for like all the yacht clubs.
Just about all of them. Well, I guess chili is universal a warming agent. That's and wine, as far as I'm concerned.
Any kind of alcohol would do the trick.
Not bad today, Ty.
That was a lot of fun.
Just another day on the water. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. Thank you. A rough day. Thank you.